This is a small group discussion with J. Krishnamurti in Ojai, California, 1981.
I see that. You know him, of course. I'll talk for a while, and so as to give you a rest. He and I have been talking about the nature of computers. I've also met several experts from America and India. And as far as I can make out, what thought can do, the computers can also perform. They can learn, they can correct themselves, they can beat the master chess players. They have their own artificial intelligence. They can be programmed, and the more astute, clever, and informed the programmer, the greater the capacity of the computer. And it can solve problems quicker than the human brain. And the thought creates its own intelligence. And the intelligence of the computer is perhaps equal to that of the intelligence which thought has created. As we are programmed to a certain extent, like the Catholic, Protestant, the Hindus, Buddhists, and so on, so is the computer. And then what is true intelligence? The artificial intelligence of the computer, and perhaps the thought which creates its own intelligence is also artificial. So, what is intelligence which doesn't belong to either? And if the computer can do almost all the things that thought can do, then what happens to man? Man has lived by thought, has created this world of thought, not nature. He's created the world, economic, social, religious world. And the problems which thought has created, thought cannot solve them. And it may solve economic problem. It may solve social problems. But I question whether it can ever solve the psychological problems. It can't. So, if the computer takes over the activities of thought, and it can diagnose, correct itself, learn, and so becoming more and more and more informed, function on its knowledge as human beings do, then what is man then? That's the real question. What is a human being who has lived on memory, on experience, on knowledge, which the computer can have all that, because it can learn, correct itself, and increase its own knowledge, and perhaps discover new things, then what's going to happen to man? Now you carry on from there.
Well, so you've stated the problem.
Yes.
And if Dr. Bohm agrees with what you have said, then only the questions have validity and we can explore the questions further. So the first...
Perhaps we should first discuss whether this is true, that...
Exactly.
Because not every person who works in computers accepts all this. It doesn't look likely that the computer would solve economic or political problems because they are connected with psychological problems.
Of course, I see that.
And but I think, there's no doubt the computer can do a great many things that thought is doing and can do much more, but whether it can do the whole of what thought is doing is not clear. No?
See, as in Japan, what I read a little bit about the Time magazine, one of these magazines, the computer and robot are cooperating together to build a car. When the computer discovers the robot is not doing it properly, the computer corrects the robot and the robot functions correctly.
So all those operations are analyzed beforehand.
Of course. Programmed completely.
Yes. But you see that there is some question as to how far this could go. You see that in the nature of thought itself that in order to carry out a logical train of thought, it is necessary to make certain assumptions and categories and axioms, or whatever you want to call them. And there's a man called Gödel who has shown that it is not possible to get a closed set of assumptions. You see that if you say the assumptions are complete, they will be inconsistent. In order to be consistent, they must be incomplete. There are more of them and more and more. Now, so the system is open rather than closed. You see. Now this sort of problem is it's like this: that a certain set of assumptions may be consistent in a certain context, but if you want the computer to go outside that context to run everything, then it's necessary to change the assumptions as you go along.
You repeat what you said. Question.
It's true. Gödel's theorem is a limitation on computers, and my contention is the same limitations would apply to the human brain.
No, it doesn't. I should think that there's an ability to, see, with the human brain we can change the assumptions when we find they're not working.
I'll explain what I mean.
Yeah.
There's also a second limitation on computers, which is the speed of electricity.
Yeah.
So we'll leave that aside for the time.
That's not so important for the moment.
Now, to start with, we are not saying that computers will ever become omniscient or omnipotent or become God and solve all problems. We are saying that whatever human thought can do, computers can do. And human thought itself has tremendous limitations. So Gödel's theorem, quite rightly, is a limitation on any logical system. So two questions arise. One is the human brain also operating in the same way, based on assumptions, extrapolation, deductive or inductive logic, and therefore has the same limitations as imposed on a computer by Gödel's theorem? That's the first question. The second is, at what point do these limitations start applying to these very large computer systems? Do they get to a point where they're already performing much better than human brains are performing before these limitations start applying? And the third point is that essentially I think what Gödel says is that a system on its own cannot be consistent and complete. It has statements which you can either
no
prove or
finite
disprove.
system, right?
No finite system. But if the system is unable to tackle a certain set of problems because you run into contradictions or incompleteness, you could have other computer systems tackling those problems.
Yeah, they will run into the same problem.
Yes, they will. This is the way human beings function at the moment. A human brain has a limitation. Say, I don't know much about medicine. So I go to another human brain who knows a great deal about medicine, and together we try and solve my medical problem.
Right.
But his brain also has limitations. So all I'm saying is that computers do have limitations, but so do human brains.
Well, I question that. You see, that is, I think people may happen to work that way, but it's not necessary. You see that. People may work in terms of fixed assumptions, but there's no reason why they should, except whatever habit or tradition. That when you see an assumption is not working, and then you see that you can see the contradiction. Whether a computer can see contradiction, I don't know. But
I think that could be done. You could program a computer to ensure that there are no self-contradictory assumptions within it. But you would have the other problem.
Well, there's no way to do that.
Incompleteness problem would be there.
Yeah.
But the consistency problem could be solved.
Well, no, because you see, the computer there would always be new situations where any set of assumptions would fail to be consistent. You see that any set of assumptions is consistent in some limited set of contexts, and in some new set of contexts it may fail.
Are you saying that the human brain doesn't operate that way?
No, I think a computer is a sort of a tremendous simplification of the human brain. That I think human brain is infinite myself, and the computer is finite.
How would you? I'm not clear on this. The human brain is programmed.
Well, partly.
Yes, programmed.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
You're born with a set of programs, right? The inherited programs. Your heart starts functioning like that. The child is obviously programmed to learn. A 6-month-old baby can't speak English or can't play chess. 20 years later it can. So obviously some programming process.
Well, it's not certain that any program has made it learn. You see, that's an assumption, which, it's very hard to prove a thing like that there exists such a
you
program.
said something just now, that the human brain is infinite. I think it is, personally.
Yeah, I think so too.
Just a minute. But for that infinite to move, work, live, thought must come to an end.
Well, I have to look at that. You see, what is thought? And
Yes, we know.
because in some, you may say there's a certain kind of thought which is programmed, but then there may be a more open kind of thought that is not fixed on programs. You see.
Is there such a thing? I've been questioning it.
Well, how could you show there is or isn't? You see.
You see, what he's saying is, since the brain is infinite,
Which is also an assumption. We don't
no, I wouldn't call it an assumption.
Well, let's treat it as one for the moment.
Huh?
We
There's
might
no
treat
way
it
of proving
way.
that either.
I think one can prove it.
Let's treat it as an assumption. We'll accept it for
We'll
the time.
accept
All right.
assumption. Let's
All
call it an assumption for the moment. And as he says, there may be different kind of thought, which is not born of knowledge.
Not limited by knowledge.
Huh?
Also not limited by knowledge.
And of course,
Are you saying there there may be a different kind of thought not limited by knowledge? Then one would need to define thought. Or there might be a different kind of operation of the brain, not limited by thought.
Yes, all right, put it that way, right?
Yes, well, you see, I think we have to sort of try to understand thought. And you see, if we were to take an example like the body, which might be non-mechanical, but it produces the bones by depositing calcium. And the bones have a mechanical structure which can be approximated by stainless steel and plastic, right?
All right.
Although only approximated. Now
Yes.
then, nevertheless, the bones are not mechanical, right? Now, the bones are necessary to give a certain firmness to the body. But if you deposit calcium in the wrong place, like the arteries, it's wrong, you see. Now, we could say that we have calcified thought.
Yes.
Mankind has been caught in calcified thought, but there might be another kind that is not entirely calcified.
So is there another kind of thought which is not born of knowledge, which is limited?
Yes.
Right?
So if we are using the word thought, what do we mean by thought? Thought, as I understand it, is a process of memory and knowledge and playing around with
I think we are, if I may introduce another word, insight. Right, sir? Insight is not the result of thought.
So before we come to insight, I would still like to find out whether let me put it this way. Would you be uncomfortable with the use of the word thought in another form, thought which doesn't act upon knowledge and memory? I am uncomfortable with it. And therefore we have chosen the word insight, or you have chosen it. I think it's an important issue. Because
which is an important issue.
The issue being that thought can never act excepting out of knowledge and memory. Because if that is so, then the implication is the computer can do it and can do it much better. And then what happens to human beings? Because then it becomes very important to find this other thing inside.
That's the other thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, but if one says that there is a process of thought which is not born out of knowledge and memory, which is the other thing, which cannot be repeated by a computer, then one is saying something quite different, because then one has to examine that statement. If you see what I'm getting.
Now wait a minute. Thought is the result, is reaction or response or the outcome of memory, knowledge, experience.
Conditioning.
Right? We agree. It's a material process. We agree to that.
Yes. Okay.
Right, sir?
Well, I think we should, there's some more that, you see, I think we could discuss the distinction of thought and intelligence and how sharp it is. You see, I think there are three words which are very closely related. One of them is select, the other is collect, and the third is intellect. You see, they're based on one root, leisurely, meaning to gather. Now, you see, when we gather things into categories which are different, selected from other categories. Now, if they are rigid, then we have ordinary thought. But in intelligence, I think the categories are not rigid. You see, you gather from in between, and you do not form fixed, rigid categories.
Yes.
But then they may gradually fix, as memory takes hold of them.
So, let's go into the question of intelligence first, yes, and then come back. Apparently, from what Asit and others have said, that the computer hasn't, by being programmed, learning and discovering for itself new axioms and so on, has its own artificial intelligence.
Yes, I wonder.
Huh?
I wonder if it has intelligence in that sense.
They say it has.
Yeah.
In that sense, meaning computers have done several things which 5 years ago nobody would have imagined them doing. Examples of which I can give. They're given in that book also, which to most people would mean that it has discovered or it has invented new things, or it's capable of thinking To quickly run over these examples. One is that it is certainly demonstrated that it can find totally novel proofs for various theorems, which nobody else has thought of before. And if the process of discovery can be defined as something which has not been taught to you, nobody else has thought of it, and you think of it, that's a reasonably good definition, then the computer certainly has discovered very elegant and novel proofs for theorems which no human being has thought of. And the example given in this book, it's a very simple example, is that if you want to prove that the base angles of an isosceles triangle are equal, the computer flipped it over by 180 degrees and proved that two triangles were congruent. And according to this book, a famous mathematician, when told about this, said that if one of my students had done it, I would have called him a budding genius. Such an elegant way. Now, nobody had programmed the computer to do it this way. The other example the book gives is the four-color problem. You know, if there are lots of counties in England or states in the US, if you want to draw a map and if you want to ensure that no two states or no two countries have the same color, no adjacent countries, it's quite easy to work out that 3 colors is too few and 5 colors is too much. With 4 colors you can do it. But nobody was ever able to prove this. People knew it, nobody could find a counterexample. Well, they programmed a computer to do it and the computer was able to prove it. Which, according to this book, happened in 1977 and rocked the mathematical world. Then the third thing, this is like the Turing test. The third thing it said was this. The Turing test is, I'm sure you know about it, is essentially, so if there's a human being in another room,
Oh, yes.
You have a computer terminal.
Tell him that.
And there's a computer in the next room and a human being at the next room. And you converse on the terminal and you don't know whether it's the computer responding or the human being responding. If you can't make out who is responding, then Turing said, and most people accept this, it's a valid test that the computer can think. So now, what happened was that 3 years ago, they took an international grandmaster, his name is given, Ivan Lendl, and they had him play a match in Toronto with, 3 years ago, the leading chess computer champion of the world, the computer champion of the world, chess champion. 2 things happened. It doesn't say who won the match, but Lendl said after the match that the computer made uncannily human moves. He really didn't know whether he was playing against a computer or a human being, and as far as he was concerned, it had passed the Turing test. And they've shown this move-by-move chess game to many chess experts, and no expert can really make out which side was the computer and which side was the human being. And this was an international chess master playing. He has given other examples like this, and this was 3 years ago. The rate of growth in this technology is so phenomenal that by now they're already, I'm sure, doing many more things. So one does find that, and he says that anybody who's really programmed a computer to talk, converse with itself, comes up with the most, even if he has programmed the computer himself, is astonished at the unpredictability of the computer's responses. So, now this is still in its infancy, computers have been around only 25 years, human beings have. But the rate of growth is so fast that it's inevitable that before the end of the century, at least, you would have computers capable of carrying on conversations on virtually everything and nobody would know the difference. So what I'm getting at is that if this is so, and computers are much faster and have more infallible memories than human beings, that everyone knows, then 2 things could happen. One is that one might abdicate more and more of the thinking functions to the computer, like children do with calculating machines. They forget how to multiply or never learn how to. One doesn't know the effect of that. Will that atrophy the muscles of the mind? One doesn't know. If it does, the consequences can be very dangerous, like body atrophying because you've got cars. However, if it doesn't atrophy the human mind, what is left of the human mind if computers can do it much better? Is there anything left at all? are we in fact then an endangered species, which so far has survived because of the use of the brain and improving the brain, but now something else is going to be much better at it. So the dying out of this species.
Yeah, well, I think that there are two questions. You see, one, that the computer will take over all these more mechanical functions of thought. You see, I think formal logic is mechanical, you see, and I'm not surprised that a computer can do it better than a man. That, see, any formal logic consists of making certain assumptions and coming out with whatever is implied. And as long as the assumptions are fixed, the computer should eventually, or even now, perhaps do it better than any human being.
He says, you say it's not an assumption.
No, I think Dr. Bohm agrees that the computer, probably even now, can do a much more rigorous logical analysis of a situation given certain assumptions.
Yes, yes.
Am I right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Therefore, the question arises that only in the irrational area the brain might be better than a computer, which if I may state it that way.
No, only when the assumptions are not fixed, you see, that as long as you can fix the assumptions, the computer will work out all the consequences. But when you come to an area where the assumptions can't be fixed, then I'm not convinced the computer can handle it.
How do you mean by the assumptions not being fixed? When does a human being change his assumptions? For example, let me try and give an example if I've understood you correctly. I tried to run from here to Los Angeles and I find I can't do it. So I changed my assumption that I can run from here to Los Angeles and I try and catch a bus. Is that an example of
No,
changing?
I think that would be rather trivial.
Okay. Can we give a better example?
Well, you see, I think that there has been a tendency in modern mathematics to treat it as nothing but formal logic. I think that is a very backward step, you see, which is mechanical, and it's not surprising that eventually the computer will do it better. You see, I think mathematics is more of an art form than it is a form of logic. And that basically in mathematics you have an equation, you say A equals B, but it's only interesting when A is not equal to B, you see. You assert the equality of things that are different. And what that means is that it becomes interesting just when logic has broken down, when this indicates some new implicit structure which you perceive, you see. So I think that the interesting point of mathematics is not logic or proof, which never is perfect anyway, because you can't be certain of it.
This friend of mine who worked at Lawrence Livermore and at Stanford told Krishnaji and me, but I must get hold of the exact paper, but he said this. He said they programmed a computer in Stanford, they fed it some axioms, and asked it to deduce various theorems from it. They also built into the computer criteria about what was an interesting theorem and what wasn't, and drop it if it isn't interesting, and pursue it further if it's interesting. And then they asked the computer to work on all this for a period of time and print out everything it had thought of, in inverted commas. Well, not only did it print out several novel proofs of known theorems, it evidently printed out theorems which hadn't been known before.
Yes, well, you see, I think that anything that you can organize in that way, the computer can do. But the interesting thing in mathematics is always that any program you put up beforehand is limited, and that it will lead to something new which was not in the program. You see, that is the interesting feature.
You see that?
I think what we are
a great deal of what mathematicians do is, what you have demonstrated is that a lot of what people is doing is mechanical. I'm very ready to agree to that.
What do human beings do, which is the human brain does, which is not mechanical?
Well, just what I said, that when the logic breaks down and you discover some new implications, that no computer could do it, you see, unless it was told that that was the sort of things it should look for, you see.
I would say, insight is not mechanical.
Insight being the ability or the process of instantly seeing through a problem.
Yes.
That's what it
That-
is. So no process of
Immediate.
thought or logic is used.
No.
No. It is not intuition, it's
No,
insight.
no, insight.
Insight.
That's not based on knowledge, not based on experience, remembrance. It's not involved in time. It's an insight, perception.
It's an instantaneous.
Immediate perception action. That's not mechanical.
And are you also saying that in order for that to take place, the mechanical must come to an end?
Obviously. Right, sir?
Well, you can't be dominated by the mechanical. See, the computer is controlled entirely by the mechanical, although you may make it more and more subtle.
Tell him about the computer plugging itself.
Yes. Yes, this was also a Stanford. They made a computer, if you pull the plug out, it will go look for a socket and plug it
Yeah, well,
in.
I think
But,
all those things can
yes.
be worked out. You see that.
But I think the key question, what Krishnaji is saying is that there is such a thing as insight, which has nothing to do with knowledge, memory, experience, and thought.
Well, I wouldn't say nothing. I would say that it's not based on those.
Yes, it's not based on
that.
Put
Yeah.
it that way.
Okay, it's not based.
So it's not based on assumptions which thought makes.
That's right.
Now, in order for insight to take place, my question is, does this process have to come to an end?
Well, I think the mechanical logical process must come to an end.
Must come to an end. Now, if that is true intelligence, why do we continue in this process? Why doesn't it come to an end?
What?
The mechanical,
Oh, wow.
the
Well,
laborious.
that's another story. I mean, you see,
That's a different question.
No.
That's a different question altogether.
It is a different question. Yeah, but so this is the reason why I've got so interested in computers. We only function in this. It doesn't come to an end.
well, unless you pull out the plug.
And
that's
also
the
now,
what
now they are saying,
The computer will stop you from pulling out the plug.
no, the computer now say they are
Solar energy. No,
solar energy.
but see
One
the
solar
point.
energy.
So let me make my point, sir. We are caught in this process. We are not coming out of it into insight.
No.
So we only know this.
Yes.
And this
That is why we are programmed to that.
yes. And this the computer will be able to do much better. So what
Yeah.
is left of us?
That's what we are saying, same thing.
Now, the more mechanical features of thought clearly can be done by a computer, which
That's all. That's all.
But thought isn't. Many of these features which people thought were not mechanical are. You see, a lot of mathematics is mechanical. You see, I think proofs are mechanical. They say that they're merely working out from the assumptions to the conclusions. And
Would you say Einstein's theory of relativity was something different from a child proving a theorem for the first time?
it wasn't a proof. You see, there's no way to prove it. It was. See, the perception or the insight of the need for relativity was a flash of perception, and from there on, he began to work it out, and a lot of that was mechanical. You see.
Yeah. Insight is, and the working out is mechanical.
Well, relatively so. Anyway,
Yeah,
you may
quite
need a
right,
bit more
quite
insight
right,
as he works
quite
it
right.
out. But
Quite.
So you are saying that the concept of relativity is insight. A Beethoven symphony is insight.
for Mozart, yeah.
And then the actual writing it out and playing it is mechanical.
What?
The actual working it out later on is mechanical.
Mechanical.
But there is this process of insight.
What are you trying to say, Asi?
All I'm trying to say, sir, is this happens obviously extremely rarely. How many Einsteins or Beethovens have there been? Okay, for almost all of us, we are caught in a process which a computer can do much better.
Well, I think the rarity is irrelevant. You see, it just happens that people tend to be caught in the mechanical.
Yeah.
But you see, the fact that it's rare doesn't make it less significant.
No. I'm saying is that to virtually all of most people in this world, the only thing they have which makes them really function is their brains. That's the reason they've dominated this earth as opposed to any animal species. And if there is going to be another species which has a better brain in this sense,
Well, I'm not sure it will, you see.
That's an assumption.
Uh,
Now, I think let's get something which is clear and simple. As far as I can make out, correct me, and please, sir, too. Thought is mechanical. As we now use thought is mechanical. That's based on experience, knowledge, memory,
Well, logic,
action, logic, and all the rest of it. From that there is action. From that action you learn, which is the same process going on. Right? That is mechanical.
clear.
And the machine can do that far better than us. Right?
Yes,
There's always a limit to that in the sense that any mechanical system being limited, reality being unlimited, there must be some some check by some human being who is beyond the mechanical. At some stage, the computer may do something disastrous.
yes.
In the computer, right?
But so do human beings.
yeah, but
Of course.
that's because human beings are imitating computers. But you see,
No, what I'm saying is that I'm perhaps repeating myself. The computer is not going to be all perfect, but neither are human beings.
well, that's another question.
I think this question, so let's get back to this question of Einstein or Beethoven. Those, I wouldn't say are insights, they are partial insights, sir. Because look at their lives.
Of course, that's understood. Now don't,
Okay,
let's,
go on.
so we are saying thought is mechanical because it's based on it being known. And is there thought which is not mechanical?
Is there thought which is not mechanical?
That's what he raised.
Perhaps there is. You see, there may be that.
There may be, that's where inquiry.
Because perhaps thought has become mechanical because it's being used wrongly.
Even if you used it rightly, it's still based on knowledge.
No, if you hold the assumptions absolutely fixed, that is what makes it mechanical, you see. Then it's like a machine. You see, people have made assumptions about everything and say that they are absolutely true, they're absolutely fixed, right?
No, of course, no.
That makes it mechanical. Now, you see, I say intelligence does not make such fixed assumptions, but it reads between the lines. So intelligence will gather information from all over without putting it into fixed categories. Now, thought is mechanical because it puts information into predetermined fixed categories, do you see what I mean, which are absolutely fixed. Now, that's what the computer does. You see, in order to classify your information, it has to be gathered and put into categories like here and there and now and then and before and after, inside and outside and so on, you see. Now, if that is absolutely fixed, the computer
can do better.
Can do it better, you see. But so we have, what happened, it seems to me, is that man became a computer.
Became a computer.
And then he made another computer, which
Yeah,
may be
that's
better
all.
eventually.
You follow what he's saying?
Yeah, what he's saying is that human beings have become badly programmed, slow computers.
That. And therefore he's created a computer
which can do that better.
etc.
But are you also saying a computer couldn't work in an unstructured situation? Is that
Unless there was some predetermined structure, I don't know how could it work.
That's what I'm not sure.
I mean, what could it do? I mean, it must be given some instructions.
It can learn.
It can learn.
But only if it's given instructions before. You see, it cannot learn from nothing, you see.
But is that different from human beings?
Well, I think human beings have insight which can remove wrong structures, dissolve them or alter them. Or, you see, if you could make a computer with insight, then...
You see, the human being may have the capacity for insight. The computer has not that capacity. Because it's essentially programmed by human mind, which is itself limited. and so on, so
But
on.
it's also
it's
in
essentially
the mechanical structure itself, there's a limit to what can be done.
Yes.
It's a mechanical process, so it's limited. The
Even if,
computer.
you had a human being with insight, he could not do better than the limits of the machine, you see.
Yeah, in other words, the question is, can you program insight?
Yeah, yeah,
Let's assume for the moment you can't.
yeah.
I'll come back to the human being. He is functioning as a computer, programmed computer.
No, yes.
Now, we are saying that he also has this capacity for insight.
Capacity, yes, he may have. Let's
He may.
look at
He may.
Potential, possible.
potential.
If he doesn't have it, he's doomed. Would you agree with that?
Oh yes, of course.
Oh yeah.
So it becomes very important to find this capacity.
That's right.
How does one
How,
know about
that's different. Now we are answering quite a different question.
Yes, but that is ultimately the question we keep coming to, isn't it, sir?
Yes.
That then it becomes vitally important to find that capacity. Especially because the computer is being developed so fast. It wasn't as important 200 years ago, perhaps. Perhaps.
Yeah, perhaps not. Yes, it's hard to say. I mean, one doesn't know about every development rises up and then it reaches a curve and falls. I think there are no linear developments that just go on forever.
Yes.
So the computer will go a long way, but then it probably will reach a limit.
At the moment it's kind of exponential.
It's going way up, yeah.
Yes,
But
yes.
someday it's going to turn down.
Yes, but maybe it will reach a point above the human brain in that.
Well, in some ways, I mean, it may do mechanical thought better than the human brain.
But
Mechanical functions.
yeah. But leaving the time frame out of it, it becomes vitally important to find this other capacity if it exists.
Yeah.
If it exists.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely vitally important. Right?
So what do we do?
Now you are addressing a programmed slow computer to find a process of insight.
Yes. Put it to the computer. See what.
You're putting it to me, who is a programmed computer.
Yes. Yes.
You are telling me,
That's right.
find a process, find it.
But you can't accept that that's all you are in the sense
No.
that you don't have a potential for more.
I have the potential,
Yeah.
but how do I express that, find that potential? How do I express it? Do you see the problem?
I see the problem.
You are in fact asking a computer.
It's not the same, because if you asked a mechanical computer to have insight, it would be impossible, you see.
No, because it doesn't have the potential.
It's just limited
So-
potential, right?
But you are asking a programmed system.
No, I'm asking, as he pointed out at the beginning, that there may be a thought which is not programmed.
There may be a process which is not programmed.
And that may be the insight. And that insight, you're asking, as that is so important, how does it come about?
How can it come about in a system which is operating in this manner?
Yes, sir. It cannot. Obviously. If my brain is programmed to function in a certain pattern, in a certain category and so on, all that has to stop.
Now, may
You
I
see,
ask,
that's where the Hindus and the meditation began. I'm pretty sure that. To stop the whole process of
thought?
thought.
Now, may I ask you a question? You know me extremely well.
Huh?
You know me extremely well.
Yes, I think so.
You-
Yes, go on.
Have you ever seen anything in my process of operation of my mind which is different from a programmed conditioned mind?
Yes,
You have?
yes.
I'm asking very seriously, sir.
Yeah.
Because, all right, let me put it in another way. People only operate in this mode, sir, programmed conditioned mode.
No,
And you are asking them.
no.
Ask-
I'm asking something else. that when you are completely, you are not hearing with the sensual ear, but hearing it inwardly. And therefore you are absolutely silent. Right? Absolute silence. Then insight may take place. Perception, in which there is no division as me, the perceiver, and the perceived, right? So conflict ends. And so the whole mechanical process of thinking with its conflict, that comes to an end.
Well, that was an interesting question. Would you think that a computer has a division of the observer, of the thinker and the thought?
Of course.
Huh?
It can be programmed to say the observer is the observer.
Well, I think the programmer is the observer, really, isn't he?
Yes, yes.
No, I would like to say something to this.
Yes, go on.
Yeah.
If a computer passes this Turing test, what is there to say that it doesn't have consciousness? Would you destroy such a computer?
Well,
What
would it
are
have
you
insight,
saying?
you see?
What I'm saying is this: if there was a computer in the other room and the human being, and I'm interacting from here, and I don't know whether it's the human being answering or the computer, so I feel fairly certain that the computer is at least thinking as well as that human being is.
Mechanical.
Sir, it's thinking as well as that human being.
Yes, yes, mechanical.
Mechanically only. Suppose, if we could see the computer does not have insight, you see, it would have to give it much more subtle communication, which would see whether the computer has insight or not.
Yes, but how would you find out if I had insight or not?
Well, that's a question. Right?
You see?
Oh, yes, you can.
How, sir? If you could find out if I had insight,
Not if you had an insight. You may have the potentiality of it.
could you find out by talking to me?
Oh, yes. I think so.
Now, suppose if this is what I'm saying. You're talking to a computer.
I know what you're getting at.
So, you might feel the computer has a potential for insight. What I'm saying is, what is consciousness? Why would you think the computer doesn't have consciousness? If it prints out, I am conscious, why would you say it isn't?
May have. But what? Where is that leading us?
I'll tell you where it's leading us, sir. Why are we assuming? Why should I assume, not you,
Go on, let's assume.
that anything else exists?
No, I don't assume.
You don't assume.
No.
You don't assume.
No, I don't assume because I have an insight and do it all the rest of it.
Now, I find that I don't have these insights.
Why?
You must accept
No,
this when
why should I accept it?
Because you see the way I live, sir.
Huh?
You see the way I live. That's
No. But you may have a partial insight.
It's not insight.
Well, why do you say no? I mean, see, there would be a difference. The computer would not have a partial insight.
But he says, the computer experts say it has.
Well, I don't agree with that. I think that
No.
you could see the difference.
What I'm saying, sir, we'll leave computers aside for a moment. But I'm saying if the computer passed this Turing test, then there is no reason to believe that if it says I'm conscious, why should you say you're not conscious? I mean, what way would it become different from a human being? If it passed the Turing test, I'm assuming.
Suppose we're having a discussion of this kind, you see, with the computer. You see.
Is there taking it all in?
Yeah, and the question is, what answers will the computer come up with?
No, I'm assuming that the computer has passed the Turing test. The Turing test.
No, but I don't. The Turing test is not good enough because you see, we say the full test for a human being is, does he have insight?
But again, I ask my question:
Right.
how would you know if a human being has insight? How would you know if I have insight?
I wouldn't ask a human being if he has insight.
Yes.
That would be a wrong question, I should think.
Okay.
But I would say, does the mechanical process of thinking stop? Ever? Or is the brain is perpetually occupied?
Now, supposing the human being Most human beings is perpetually occupied. Supposing the human being were to say, yes, it stops. What next?
No, wait a minute. Either it stops because it's weary, tired, for various reasons, lack of oxygen and so on and so on. That's not insight.
No, that's not insight.
Of course.
Because the computer can do that.
Which of course it
Yes,
can.
it can be in a wait state with nothing
Yeah,
going on.
of course it can.
So how would you find out if I have insight, sir?
Why do are you putting the right question?
The reason I'm putting that question is, we go back to computers. How do we find out if computers can think? That was the Turing test. Now we are saying, how do we know it has insight, the computer? So my question is, how do you know a human being has insight? How will you find out?
You yourself said Beethoven and Einstein had partial insight.
So what I would like to state is they did things which nobody has done before. It's extremely rare what they did. It was very significant. I wouldn't call it partial insight.
Huh?
I wouldn't call it.
I don't follow.
So they did something extraordinary. There are I think 4 billion people on Earth today, and there have been a lot in the past, and something happened to them, and they did something happened to them. That's all I'm willing to state. I'm not even willing to say that they did it. I don't know what happened.
I don't quite follow you.
Sir, you said that I said earlier, which I did, that they had partial insight.
We all said that.
We said that because, in a sense, I wanted to move on. But one really doesn't know what happened. Can one work out what happened to Einstein
Not
at
Einstein.
that time?
Not
Or to
Einstein.
Beethoven?
I think one can observe it in oneself.
Sir, may I ask you a question? If you understand something, can you teach it to another human being?
If the other human being is willing to listen. Listen.
Yes. In other words, we are saying that if one could understand the process by which Beethoven composed the symphonies, Einstein got his flashes of perception, even if they could have understood it, they could have explained and taught it to
Yeah, I
others.
think so.
They obviously were incapable of not only
Yeah.
teaching it to others,
Wait.
but not doing it themselves.
It
later
must
on.
be, insight can't be something totally disharmonious, lack of harmony. It must be your whole life, your way of, you follow, your behavior, everything must be in as a whole. Right? When that wholeness takes place, there is immediate insight. I think that's how it operates.
That's how it operates.
Right, sir?
Now, supposing
Would you agree to that?
Yes, everything has to be together.
you're
The
saying,
decks have to be clear.
you're saying it's an integral process, it's not fragmented, it's now I'm asking you, and let's make an assumption that you have this insight.
Blessed matter.
If you understand the process,
Not the process.
okay. If you
No, it's more,
understand the,
it's more than a process.
okay.
Yeah,
If
more
you
than-
understand, I think it will get clear if I try and find the right word, and if you say
Yeah,
it's the
go
right
on.
word. If you find the conditions under which insight can come into being,
No conditions.
okay.
You see, you can answer it yourself, old boy.
So I'm trying to clarify. Are you saying it happens?
No. It is not by chance.
Not by chance,
It's not by calculation.
not by calculation, not by conscious effort.
No.
As you said in your books, it comes uninvited.
Yeah.
Now,
No, uninvited in the sense, you see the problem, there's the problem. And you don't analyze, you see it as a whole.
now I'm saying to you, sir, that I'm unable to see it as a whole. Help me. What would you do? No, sir.
Could I ask you a question and say, who is the computer talking?
It is, you see, because I'm asking you literally to program it to have insight.
But the computer can't do it.
The computer can't do this.
The computer can't do this.
I don't know, it may.
Wait.
Eventually, when it reaches the peak.
What I'm saying,
Well,
the
not
computer
present.
can't do it, I'm willing to accept that. I'm stating that a human being can't do it also.
I'm not sure, sir.
But if the computer is saying this, it just could be the program, couldn't it?
So I accept the computer can't do it.
No, but I'm
saying the
asking
human.
another question, that this very statement, you see, we're doing, the, as it were, the Turing machine, or the Turing argument now, and not Turing machine, to say that we're talking, suppose I say we're talking with the computer, right? So you have said that you're a computer, so it's up to us to talk with the computer to see if it's a computer or not. Did you see the question?
Okay, I'm willing to state that I'm not a computer, I have the potential for insight.
Yes.
I will have a completely open mind on this because I want this insight, I really do. And I'm saying, can you help me, can you teach me, can you show me? Is there any way you can do this? That's what I'm saying.
I'm asking you, you've got it. You've got quick insight, about many things. I come to you and say, look, I would like to have that capacity. I may have the potentiality of it, but I like it flower, right? What would be my question? That I would like to have it? When I ask that question, it becomes mechanical. I don't know if you follow what I mean.
I follow that.
Huh?
That I follow.
So don't ask the question.
I'm not. No, sir. My question is, can you?
Wait, I understand. No. When you ask that question, you're asking for a system, for a method. Wait. For some kind of information which you can manipulate, which you can organize, which you can categorize, all the rest of it. Now, if you ask the question without any of that,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Would you ask it?
Yes.
But wait, no.
Yes, sir. So, my question is, it's very simple. Give me an insight into insight for a moment, that's all. I don't want the system to be able to repeat it. That is my question.
I understand your question very well.
But you see, I think you're approaching it the way the computer would, as if the computer wanted an insight, it would ask what to do to get, you see, that's just the question the computer would ask.
You follow what he's saying?
I follow completely. And in fact, sir, it is confirming what I'm saying, that I can only operate like a computer. That's what I'm saying.
Therefore, don't operate like a computer.
And then my next question is, show me. This is the only thing I know. This is the only thing I know, sir.
David, can you teach me? Seriously, can you teach me a thing which you have grasped? I may put it badly, just get my meaning. Something which you have grasped immediately, something whole, you know what I mean? Can you teach? Can you inform me about it, teach me, so that I can learn it?
Well, not step by step.
Huh?
Not through a series of steps, I mean.
Can you convey that to me? That you have seen something so as a whole and therefore acted as a total human being without any contradiction, etc., etc., etc. And you act from there, right? And I come to you as your disciple, as your whatever it is, and I say, please, inform me about it. Tell me whatever words you use. I want to capture that feeling of that something instantly taken place. Right? That's what you're asking. Now, wait a minute, we're going to inquire, please. What is the state of my mind that's asking this question? It's wanting something, right? It's grasping something. It says, if I could have that, my problems will be solved.
That's one state, but the state, I'm not in that state right now. Shall I tell you the state I'm in? See, here is a man whom I've seen, here is a man whom I've seen in his daily life of so many years, and he's been talking about it for so long, and obviously he has something, and I want a glimpse of it, not so that my problems would be solved, but I'm really deeply interested, curious, deeply, seriously. What is it? What he's been saying it for so long, he's living it, he's doing it. What is it? Why is it escaping me? You follow? That's the state. Not that I want him to solve my problem.
No, I'm asking, what is the state of your mind which is asking this question? You getting it? You go slow. What is the state of my mind when I go to David? I'm going to call you David. For a long time I haven't. Now, I go to David and say, look, sir, you have this insight. You see things as a whole. I can't. I'm not asking to solve, having insight will solve my problems. I'm not interested in it. I want to learn or comprehend or feel that quality of a mind that is, right, whole. See what has happened? I have reached a certain point in myself to ask that question. I don't know if I make it clear. Okay. It's not mechanical. I've dropped the mechanical. Right? I've dropped it because I'm much more interested in that. So for this is in abeyance.
Yes, I think that's right. I might not have dropped it, but
it's in abeyance. It's down in the the basement. Right? So is your mind?
Not sure about that.
You're getting what I'm talking about? Is your mind free when you are asking the question that is not functioning mechanically? That's what he's telling me.
I'm not sure if it's...
Are you asking this question mechanically?
No.
Or non-mechanical? Wait, steady. That's what I go to him and I say to him, sir, I'm quite sure I'm not acting, I'm non-mechanical. I'm not asking this question mechanically.
I can't make that statement. I really don't know whether I'm asking it mechanically. I really don't know.
Because I want to capture that.
That I want to do.
I want to understand what that thing is. So my mind is absolutely not knowing.
Yes.
Not knowing.
Yes.
Not expecting.
Wait.
Not wanting.
No. Wait, how can you say not wanting, not expecting?
Of course. Not expecting something from him. I come to him and say, sir, I want to understand this insight may transform everything, etc.
Isn't that?
Huh?
Isn't that expecting, wanting?
No. I want to understand it. I want to feel it. I want to feel the contours of it, the smell of it.
Yeah, I think we should make
The
clear
texture.
the difference between expecting and this. You see, the
Expecting
and what you say. That expecting would be already to have some
Of course,
notion,
of course,
idea,
of course.
or feeling, right?
Of course, I'm not expecting.
Okay. So in that sense, I'm not.
No. I don't know what it is.
I don't know. I really.
Right? No.
Yes.
Therefore, I'm not waiting. As he said, I'm not expecting,
No, I'm not. When I come to you, and
Huh?
when I come to you,
Yes.
and I tell you that
Are you coming mechanically or non-mechanically?
I don't know, sir.
Find out, sir. Is your question born out of mechanical response?
No.
No. Therefore, I go to David. I'm very clear on this. I see he has got this quality of insight. Very strongly. He takes decisions, he does things without the operation of thought entering into his decisions. Right? See, when he says something, it's not thought out. What he says is non-mechanical, but he works it out mechanically.
It can be supported by thought later on.
Supported by. So, I am asking the question, knowing all this, I say, sir, what is this insight? I'm already in communication with it. I don't know if you feel. You understand, sir?
So why do you say you're already in communication?
Because my mind is free of the mechanical.
Yes, well, that's the essence of insight.
Yes.
I mean, you were saying insight is natural if the mind is not mechanical.
It's not mechanical, it's not, what do you call it, born out of knowledge, it's not of time, it is immediate perception. And I'm not sure the computer can't do this. If my brain, which is mechanical, which has been for a million years has been mechanical, and David tells me, your brain is infinite. I see that immediately. Because when he said that just now, I saw, but it is so.
That was insight.
And
That is insight.
that's nothing to do with logic.
I know. Now,
Right?
Yes, you saw it.
I saw, not see it, the infinite.
For you,
Yes,
it was absolutely true instantaneously.
Yes.
Now, my reaction is, I don't know. Why do you say that? Prove it.
Yeah.
How do you go about
Which is mechanical.
Yes, absolutely.
Which means what?
Which-
You are
means
you are listening with the sensual ear,
Yes.
which is mechanical.
Yes.
Which ear did you say? The central?
Huh?
Sensual.
Sensual ear,
Yeah.
Yes. I'm saying that, sir. I'm saying that I'm doing that. And I see somebody else having insight. And so I say,
Right? So you see, if you say, if David tells me, meditate. If he says, make your mind quiet. If he says, It is necessary to have an absolute quiet brain when there is insight, for insight to take place, which is non-mechanical, right? So, all those are time-binding. I don't know if you...
Yeah.
So, I dispense with all that. Because when he said infinite, right?
Yeah, I saw you light up. Yeah, but you say you dispense with all that. That itself is the process of insight. Instantaneous
When he said
dispensation.
infinite, why didn't you jump?
I explained why. My reaction.
No.
It's still so, sir.
Huh?
It's still so.
You?
It is still, if you tell me the mind is infinite, I would still go through this. Why do you say that? How do you prove it? What makes you think? I don't see that it's infinite.
Which means what? The mechanical mind and the mechanical brain is tremendously active.
Yes.
Argument, logic, reason, opposing opinions and so on, moving in that you're functioning with that program.
Yes.
Pull the plug out.
You're back, sir. We're back to that point.
I'm back to, of course we are back to that point. David tells me one thing, which is the brain is infinite. It's not because it's infinite, it's not personal.
You see, sir? You
Capture it?
No, sir. No, I intellectually I capture that. You have an insight, the brain is infinite. If somebody says the brain is infinite, you have an insight. And then you move from that, from insight to insight. So your next insight is therefore it's not. And that your process, please let me call it process, is moving from insight to insight.
Yes.
My process is moving from logic, maybe bad logic, assumption,
Good logic,
testing,
essential.
observation, all that. Now, I am saying that this stream and that stream
Can't go together.
can't go together.
Absolutely.
I also see that this stream creates a lot of problems. Okay. And so, obviously, most of the time when I want this insight, it is to be free of problems. Though when I was asking you half an hour ago, it was. Now, you are saying that you are in this, you are telling me, you are in this stream, jump out.
You can't.
You can't.
No. You can't jump out of it.
End this stream. That's what you're saying. And I am
Pull
saying.
the plug out.
Yes, I'm saying deeply, subconsciously as well as consciously, that I can't do it. It's the only thing I know. It would be almost tantamount to committing suicide. You know, I can amplify that, use different words.
Of course.
You're saying drop the only thing you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm saying that I would like to do it, but I can't.
No. We are getting excited about the next stuff. I must go back.
Sorry.
He's saying, David is telling me, as the brain is infinite, it's not personal. It's not your brain and my brain. That's very clear. I've been saying that earlier.
Yes.
It's not your brain. It's not my brain.
Yes. And
right?
yes.
Therefore, it's nothing to do with persons.
Yes.
You see that very clearly? Wait. No, see it immediately.
No, sir. The difference between your... Please let me explain this. I start by saying, if the brain is infinite, the rest follows what you're saying. Whereas you are saying, it's obvious the brain is infinite, therefore this is obvious, this is obvious. But my if is at the beginning of the whole process.
Because when he said that, I was listening to him. You follow? I wasn't arguing it. I can argue afterwards.
I know.
When he made that statement, I was on the top of it.
I know.
Why? No, analyze why.
Why?
I was listening. My mind was inquiring, listening, looking. And David drops a stone in that, and it... Right? You are not listening. You are arguing. Is this so?
You, when you say you're listening, did you examine that statement at all?
No,
Whereas...
I didn't examine it. It's so.
It's so.
From that immediately, it's not personal. Because it's infinite, it can never be personal. Brain, which the mechanical thought, he says, my brain.
I follow that, sir. What you are saying is insight is perception or listening without any examination, which implies any analytical process at all.
Of course.
But then how do you know it's so?
No, because from that insight you can argue logically.
Are you saying that logic is necessary? No. If you couldn't argue it logically, wouldn't it still be there?
It wouldn't be there.
It wouldn't be there?
No.
So you are saying you see something and you can support it with logic.
Yes.
Then why isn't the converse true? Why can't you come to it through logic?
Logic is, of course.
No, because
Logic is brain.
logic
thought.
depends on assumptions. You see, if you start with logic, you are starting with your past assumptions, which are wrong, right? You see, the difficulty, when you start from insight, you start from something new, a new perception. From there you can go on to reason with a new perception. But if you start from logic, you must be starting from what you know, which is always wrong, fundamentally.
Yes, of course. Move.
I won't accept this so easily, but...
Of course, it is simple.
No, it's bound to be wrong in anything
You
fundamental.
said just now,
What?
thought is limited. Thought is mechanical.
Yes.
Logic is mechanical,
Yes, sir. Yes,
right?
yes, sir. But...
Right? Through logic, you can't come to the other.
All right. That I accept.
Once you have that insight, thought can operate logically.
All right, sir. But it can. How far can it go back? At some point, it comes to a self-evident assertion, which I know of already.
I don't follow.
What I mean is, you're on the top of a mountain, and you can climb down to it. I'm at the bottom of the mountain. What I'm saying is that either we are on parallel paths and there's no meeting point at all, or if you can come down logically to this point, I can climb up logically to that point.
It's nothing to do with logic.
No, sir,
The insight has nothing to do with logic.
when you say it can be supported by logic later.
No. You used the word support, I didn't.
I think you could say it can be unfolded logically
Yes.
to communicate
Yes.
it. That's it's not really identical with the insight. It's a way of communicating insight by a logical
No, that's
discussion, right?
Yes, it's a way of communicating.
Communicated action and so on.
Yeah.
No, I'm saying, please correct me if I'm wrong, you cannot communicate it logically.
Logically, you cannot communicate it.
So,
Because logic is thought.
exactly. So we come back. You
What?
either have it or you don't.
No.
You see, I think that insight changes the basis on which you reason. You see, one begins by reasoning on a false basis. You see, that's the normal basis. Therefore, from where you are, you can't get anywhere. You see, there's nowhere to get from where we are to anything else. But see, if you have insight, then that is gone. And your reasoning is coming from insight, not from what you know, right?
Yeah. In fact, if you have insight, there is no reason, there's no reason to reason it out. You have it. The reasoning process would be there only if you were trying to communicate it.
Well, or else to work, to apply it, right? If you want to apply your insight to make a computer, for example. To suppose you want from your insight to do something, right? Like insight into gravitation, then you might use it for something.
To find an application for that insight, you would need lots of it. But, sorry.
Look, so we started out with saying thought is mechanical. Computer is mechanical. Right? Right? What thought can do, computer can do, up to a certain point. Thought is being mechanical. You can never capture that which is non-mechanical. Insight is non-mechanical. Right? Totally non-mechanical. Now, you listen to that. Don't argue. You've argued enough now to say thought is mechanical, computer is mechanical. Whatever thought can do, up to a certain point, computer can do. It can learn, it can relearn, it can adjust, it can do all that kind of thing which thought can do. All based on knowledge and so on and so on. We both agree to that. Right? Right? David tells me that's perfectly right up to that point. But that doesn't bring about insight. He tells me that. So I say, all right. I don't say, what am I to do? The moment I say, what am I to do, you're back in the cycle. Right? He tells me that. He said, see that very clearly and don't move away from that. Right? Right? We have argued about this mechanical process in and out sufficiently. We can go much more in detail and so on, but we've got the principle of it. Right? You say that's all. Don't move from that. Don't say, what is inside? If you don't move, it's there. I don't know if you're...
Now I'm beginning to get it. I'm not saying I'm beginning to get it. I'm beginning to see what you are saying.
Yeah.
Are you saying you see the mechanical process of your mind and just see it, that's all. And don't move from it, see it.
See it.
That's all. No
You
more.
see it completely. You can add little bits and little bits here and there, add, subtract, but you see thought is mechanical. Moment you move away from that, it becomes mechanical. Right? If you see that stop there, you understand?
Yes, that's the thing. Any movement away from it. Yes.
See, movement is time. We discussed this with David some years ago. Movement is time. Right, sir? If there is no movement of knowledge, after all, the ancient Hindus had this idea, what is it? Vedanta. Anta means to end, knowledge. So we say, how am I to end it? And I'll practice this and do that, which is still the same wheel going round and round. I think this exactly happened when the brother died. Absolutely no moving from that.
From that sorrow?
From that sorrow. From that shock, from that feeling, which is, it didn't go after comfort, it didn't go after reincarnation, it didn't go after somebody, masters. I don't know if you follow me.
Yes.
There is no other fact except that.
And the mind stayed with that fact.
Mm-hmm. See what happens if you stay with it. What vitality you get out of it. Better stop, he's tired. What time is it?
Past 6.
What?
Just past 6.